Archaeologist believes he's found the ruins of Noah's Ark.
I would stake my life on the fact that I know where the Ark of the Covenant is.
Okay, we're here in the Ark Discovery studio, and we have a special guest today, Jesslyn Johnson. She's from the Nashville area. And speaking of Nashville, that's where Ron Wyatt lived, wasn't it? Now, how did you first encounter Ron Wyatt in your early days knowing him?
Well, the first time I ever saw him was at church. We used to go to the same church, Sabbath after Sabbath. He and his wife and 3 children, and my husband and I with 2 children at that time. It was in the late 60s. And then after that, when I just finished anesthesia training and was working at the old Nashville hospital, he came to the hospital where I was working in General Hospital, Nashville General Hospital.
Okay.
And I happened to be in charge of the anesthesia that day for a few operating rooms, and I was going from room to room to relieve the anesthetist so they could have a break. And there were students from the anesthesia school, Madison Hospital Anesthesia, School of Anesthesia. And Ron was there. And when I went in to give him a break, he said, "No, I'll finish the case." And I thought that was strange. Nobody had ever not accepted a break before. And then I didn't see him again for a few years when he came to work where I was working at Donaldson Hospital in Donaldson, Tennessee, which is in the same county as Nashville. And then he worked there for a few years. And that's when we got acquainted. That's when I began to know who he was.
So this was in the early 70s?
Yes, around 1975.
Okay. And that's about the time he started thinking about going out and looking for Noah's Ark, wasn't it? What did he say to you about that?
Well, I understand that from childhood he was interested in exploring and going in caves and finding things. But he started talking about finding Noah's Ark. He wanted to find Noah's Ark. And I didn't have any confidence that he would do such a thing. He told me that there were several things he wanted to do besides finding Noah's Ark. He wanted to check out the Red Sea crossing where the children of Israel went, and several other things. He told me that he had deciphered a cuneiform
tablet or something?
Cuneiform tablet that had never been deciphered before.
Oh.
And I found that interesting because that takes a smart person to do that.
What was the topic of that? Do you recall?
He didn't say. I was too stupid to ask questions.
No, that's okay.
I didn't do a lot of talking or asking questions in those days. Sometimes I'd like to have the opportunity.
Yeah,
again.
go back.
But Ron loved to talk. He would just talk and talk and talk and talk to almost anybody who would listen. And he would talk about things he wanted to do. He wanted to write books. He wanted to make a movie of things from the Bible. He even went so far as to talking about who he would have to play the part of Adam and Eve and such. But he never got his video made, and he didn't get much writing done. He did write some little books, but he tried to find somebody else to write books for him. He wanted to explore and find things. He didn't really want to do the writing himself. He just didn't want to do that, or do the illustrations. He wanted somebody else to help him.
But let me go back and ask you, so in around 1975 or so, he was thinking about Noah's Ark and even the Red Sea crossing at that point, before he had found anything.
And he was very interested in Egypt. He wanted to explore Egypt. He wanted to, there were just several things that just seemed...
It seemed really big. This is a big task. And no one had found Noah's Ark, no one had found the Red Sea, and yet he was interested in these. Wow, this is amazing.
And I thought, oh, yeah, sure, Ron.
Yeah.
I had no confidence at all that he'd ever do such a thing. But
Sure.
I enjoyed listening. I just loved to hear him talk.
Yeah.
And he loved to talk. And so he told me quite a few things as time went by.
Okay. So, did he talk to you about going out to Noah's Ark, his very first trip? Did he tell you he was getting ready to go or anything like that? Or his return visit?
I think he did talk about it some. He talked about how he didn't know where to go. He wanted to find out from others who had been looking, because lots of people had been exploring in Turkey looking for Noah's Ark, most of them looking on Mount Ararat, which Ron told me that wasn't even there when Noah's Ark landed. He said it was a newer volcanic mountain and that it wasn't there. But he had seen this picture of the Darupanar site, which...
From Life magazine.
Yeah, he wanted to explore. And there had been a group, Elder Vanderman's group had gone out there before that and looked it over, and someone had dynamited a hole in the side of it.
1960, yeah.
They were looking for wood with growth rings, and they couldn't find any, so they decided that wasn't Noah's Ark, and they went elsewhere looking. And Ron wanted to go and look at that site, but he couldn't find anybody to tell him how to get there. He did not know where it was.